video is about something that was really interesting in a conversation I had with my therapist a couple days ago, and I wanted to share it because it could help somebody. Like to hear it? Here it go. All right, so we were talking about, I don't know how we got on this subject, but for those of you in the back that don't know and are new to me and all of the things, hi, I'm Roshini. I was diagnosed with depression, listen, 20 years ago at this point. And so more recently, I was told that my diagnosis is PTSD. We can go into all of that in another video. So in this particular conversation with my therapist, we were talking about mood somehow. We got to talking about mood. We got to talking about, how you feeling? Are you all right? And the whole thing. And she started talking about hyper arousal versus hypo arousal. That's what it was. And so she whips out this handout because she's the queen of handouts. And it was about this thing called the window of tolerance. And above the window of tolerance, outside of the window of tolerance was hyperarousal, and below the window of tolerance was hypoarousal. So hypoarousal was basically a description of depression. I mean, it's a lot more complex than that, but that was basically the gist to get to the point I'm trying to make. And so it was the, lowered mood, lowered all this, lowered all the things. And I said to her, I feel like that's my natural state. Now, I know for somebody it's going to be like, girl, what? You kidding? You, Roshini, who be making these videos on the internet, that's your natural state? Yes, boo-boo. Yes, boo-boo. That's my natural state. And if you've been on the internet with me for a really long time, you already know this. This is not new to you. It's probably real new to anybody on Facebook. If I post this video on Facebook, going to be brand new to y'all because y'all are like, oh, she's the funny chick that made the mango video. The old heads on YouTube, it is not new to y'all. So anyway, that I feel like is my baseline. And I told her, I was like, however, over the years, as I've grown and matured and learned and healed and all the things, I am very intentional about creating something else. And what I create is something that is above that baseline, right? So from her handout, it would be something that isn't hypo-aroused, isn't depressed and lowered, an experience of self that is within the window of tolerance, right? That is more socially, what am I saying? A more socially normative mood. A mood that society is created for, okay? Within this window. Hopefully you're following me. So she says to me then, and all of this was not new to me. I was just telling her, this is how I am. Okay, I've lived this way. I've noticed for the past 20 plus years that I tend to have a lowered mood. I tend to have ennui. I tend to have disinterest. I tend to be lowered mood. I have a mood disorder. And so I have a lot of things in place to create something that is more socially, not just acceptable, but something that can actually function in a society that is designed for, 80% of the bell curve is within this mood range. And she said to me, she was like, well, first of all, it might not be your actual mood because you might be used to it. So used to that being your mood that you think it's your real you. And I was like, why, yes. I mean, talk about existential crisis and circle. I've had that thought before. But the unfortunate thing is you don't know where you begin and where the mood disorder ends at times. And so because I've spent so much of my life in that space at this point, I mean, it's kind of me. Okay, like she was like, I could see that. And I was like, yeah, I totally get what you're saying. However, also and, as well as in addition to, okay? So then she points this out to me and it was like another thing added on to my healing journey. I wanted to share it with you guys. She was like, if you feel like you're always hypo-aroused, if you feel like you're always naturally, your baseline, she called it baseline blah, which I thought was so perfect. She was like, you're at baseline blah, and that is your natural state. That means that there is a lot of effort that you have to exert to get within a window of tolerance to be a functioning member of our society, the society that you are living in. And I was like, yeah, there's a lot of effort. There's a lot of intention. There's a lot of, you know, stuff that I do at times to get myself in, to rev myself into that space. Oh, that's what it was. The whole conversation started because I told her there was a day last week that I was like, I don't feel like doing this stuff. Like, I didn't feel like getting into the window of tolerance. Hello, Erin. I just felt like staying where I was. And I knew cognitively that the next day I was going to do the stuff. But that day I just allowed myself to rest and be where I was, which was in that lower mood state, right? And not make any, not make any large life decisions. That's one thing I've learned when I'm in that state. So anyway, that's how the conversation started. Okay, back to baseline blah. She was like, it takes a lot of effort to get into that space, right? I said, yes, it does. And she goes, have you ever thought about how exhausting that must be for you to always have to move yourself from your natural, what you perceive as your natural mood state, into somewhere in the 80% of the bell curve, somewhere that is more socially able to function? How much effort that takes, and how you must be so exhausted doing that. And I was like, no, I have not. Now, I have always thought about how exhausted I am. I tell my husband all the time in different ways about how exhausted I am. I never really thought about it as a function of having to intentionally move myself into a space, into a certain mood space. Hopefully this video is making sense. I was, it's gonna help one person. If it's helping you, put it in comments down below, because I don't know if I'm getting it out. Okay. And so the larger thought that I had, that I shared with my husband, is the older I get, the more I realize that all of us diverge from the 80% of the bell curve in some way, shape, or form. If you don't know what I'm talking about, let's just say that 80% of the population is fill in the blank, and the population, the society, everything in our society is built around that 80%. A good example is people who walk. Okay, I have a son in a wheelchair, and so now I live in the 20% outside of the bell curve. And so I, a person who is able-bodied and walks, who married a man who is able-bodied and walked, we got to live the majority of our upbringing and beginning of our adult life in the 80%, in the life that is designed for people who can walk. Staircases, lack of elevators, no ramps, parking wherever we wanted to, not having to think about whether wheelchairs could this or where all the things that people who have who need to use adaptive equipment have to think about. Now that we have a 9-year-old, we always have to think about that. And so we were moved into the outer wings of the bell curve. Does that make sense? And so that particular thing exists with everything. If 100% of the population exists in any space, whether it be mood, physical ability, listen, neurological deviances, diversions, all the things, certain capabilities, romantic relationship, healings, traumas, wounds, all the things, disorders of the mind and the spirit and the body and the things, society has this middle ground that it is constructed to be more optimal for. And all of us have something where we are in the 20%, the outskirts. And our baseline is there. And most of us have to then do some sort of extra effort to move inside of that. Listen, I don't know if this is coming out right, but I'm not going to refilm this video. Okay. So for me, one of those things is my mood. I have often thought about how I have a lowered mood. I've had a lowered mood the majority of my adult life. I remember the beginning of my depression really being noticeable to me in college. So, I mean, I went to college when I just turned 18. I am 45. So it's the majority of my life, and it has not gone away. Has it dipped? Has it dove? Has it gotten better? Has physical parts of it left, like keto? I started eating keto, and the physiology of it really went away. But still, there's situational things, and there's healing that has to happen, right? I mean, it didn't fully go away because, right? But anyway, but my baseline is still blah. My baseline is blah. And so what she encouraged me to do was to really think about how much effort it takes and how exhausting that has to be, and to give myself grace for the fact that I'm exhausted, always having to move into a place that everybody else could, the majority of the population that this society is built for, to accommodate their moods. Y'all happy people, y'all naturally happy people. I'm not saying happy people like I'm not happy. Y'all know I'm out here with my joy. I'm just saying y'all naturally happy people, okay? Like it takes a little bit more for me to crank the engine. And when I don't do all of that stuff, sometimes I'm blah. I'm ennui. What is the point? Okay? That's natural. That's my natural place. And I'm not even ashamed to say that, because I mean, I've been saying that on the internet for like a decade. Okay. So like, that's just where it's at. And so anyway, that's a thought, because it is exhausting, and she is correct. And I never really thought about the fact that one of the reasons why I am tired all the time, beyond the fact that I have all this stuff going on in my life, is that I am shifting myself constantly out of my natural baseline, perceived or real natural baseline. Okay. Listen, that hopefully it'll bless somebody if you let it. And the other thing I'm going to do now, as I told my husband, is I am going to start thinking about other places in my life where I am outside of the 80%, where my baseline falls outside of the 80%. You know, I told you another one. Another one is with my son. Okay. I'm out here living this wheelchair life, y'all. I'm out here living a lot of things when it comes to like chronic medical situations that other people don't have to think about. Most of y'all watch these videos have never thought about the stuff I've had to think about in the last 10 years, and you never will have to think about it. So for me to do something, it takes a lot more effort. For me to go on a trip, for me to go on vacation, for me to leave the house, for me to go to a place, for me, I have to do more research. I have to ask more questions. I have to know more things. I have to solve more problems because I have a wheelchair and a kid that can't walk and and you might not. Okay. Same thing with, you know, a depressed mood. I got to do all of these things to get myself revved up. Okay. I got to crank the engine and and oil to this and and shake this on it and sprinkle that on it and affirmations and all of it. You know what I mean? And you might just wake up like, hey, it's a sunny day. I'm awake. I'm ready. And I'm not. Okay. And I'm thinking about all the other places in my life where I have to do that, because it never dawned on me about that. And I'm going to start, I don't know, acknowledging the exhaustion that comes from having to exist in a society that is created for the 80%. In whatever it is. Yeah, so hopefully that makes sense. Okay. I know I was just talking deep, but I gotta go because I feel like making some wings in the oven. And I should have put them in already, because that's 35 minutes from now. Leave your questions and comments below the video, because you never know, they may become the next video. Until that next one. Here's a pineapple, that little thing right there. And if you want another one, there's one there. And just for good measure, there's one. Ignore that stuff on the bed.